And again, it's a mimer from Shabbos Parsh Vayigash, Dalet Teves Tavshin Lamed Dalet. Vayigash Elav Yehuda, Vayomer Bi Adoni. Yehuda approached Yosef and he said, I beg you, please, my master. So it's known what this corresponds to, that Yehuda is approaching Yosef, is an avoid of a yid. From the fact that the pasuk relates all the detailed matters that's involved in this, and also the introduction that brought to it. It's understood that it's a general parsha. It could have just said, in short, that Yehuda and Yosef finally revealed themselves to each other. Goes through the whole speech and goes through everything that went beforehand and everything that happened afterwards, and how Yehuda approached. So this shows how important and how crucial and vital an Inyan and Torah this message is. And there is a core directive and lesson in the avoid of every single Yid throughout all the days of his life when it comes to this message and this avoid of Vayigash Elav Yehuda. So what is it? How do we understand what the message is? So first, let's look at what the Zohar says. According to what's written in the Zohar, the approach of Yehuda to Yosef, it's like we have in davening, that after we say the bracha of Gal Yisrael in the end of Birchas Krishma and Shachris, we go straight from Gal Yisrael, we go to Shemoneh Esrei. So we have Geula straight to Tefillah. In the Lashon of Chazal, Tefillah is referring to not the entire corpus of davening, beginning from Hoidu or Brachas. Tefillah specifically is referring to Shemoneh Esrei, to the Amidah Tefillah. So Gal Yisrael, we say immediately after that, Tefillah, Shemoneh Esrei. And that is the idea of Agashas Yehuda Yosef. How come? What's the connection? Ki Yehuda Malshain Hayda, Yehuda is in the word thanks. That's the Pam Oides Hashem, Leah said. Inyan Tefillah, that's the level of davening. Remember B'kriyas Shmoishal Yehuda, like it says when Leah called Yehuda's name, Hapam Oides Havai, and now I will thank Hashem. So thanks and praise, that's the idea of Yehuda. That's davening. Yosef in Geula, Yosef is the idea of redemption. Why is it the idea of redemption? Like it says, Im Yigolech Toiv. If he will redeem you, will be good. Or, like other Mefarshim say, if Toiv will redeem you. Toiv was the name of a person. Yosef in Yonei Toiv. Yosef is the idea of Toiv. Why is Yosef the idea of Toiv? So the Rebbe says two reasons why, in the brackets. Hein bepashtos, both in the simple sense, Yosef is the idea of Toiv. Literally, he was good. He gave food. He is a supplier of food. That is to all the entire nation, to the entire people. That's the idea of good. And also, according to Kabbalah, Yosef is good. As it's known, Yosef was Sfiras HaYisoid. Yosef is a Sfira of Yisoid. That's why it's called Yosef HaTzadik. The level of Tzadik has to do with the Sfira of Yisoid, as it says, Tzadik Yisoid Olam. So the fact that Yosef is called Yosef Tzadik, that's the level of Sfiras HaYisoid. Shapay Elas Hashpas Kol Inyane Toiv B'Sfiras HaMalchus. What's the purpose of Yisoid? Yisoid joins and causes the flow into Malchus. Malchus, we say the whole time, Kabbalah, Leslei Megamot Klum. It has nothing of its own, Kabbalah and Chassidus. Meaning, it's only a receiver. Yisoid is the Mashpia. Yisoid is the one that transmits everything from above in Atzilus into Malchus. So therefore, Yisoid is the level of Toiv, of good, just like Yosef physically was the one that was Mashbir, giving food to the entire world. Vaidei HaMalchus, and then, once Malchus receives this goodness of the sphere of Yisoid, afterwards it comes down to the entire chain order of descent that follows Malchus in the worlds of Bri Yitzir Asiyah. So it's not just a goodness that's like focused on Malchus. The goodness that's coming into Malchus is for the sake of coming down good to the entire Seder Ishtalshlus. Therefore, so we've now established Yehuda is davening, and Yosef is toiv, which it says im yigolcha toiv, that toiv has to do with geula. He concludes line 18, Masha Namar Vayigash Elav Yehuda, that Yehuda li Yosef, Yehuda approached Yosef, who inyan smichas geula tefillah. It's the fact that you have to have geula right before davening. You're not supposed to interrupt. You're not supposed to make any hefsek. We don't even answer amen. After Baruch Atah Hashem Goal Yisrael, we go straight into Shemoneh Esrei. So now the Rebbe is going to ask a very interesting question about the order of things in davening versus what took place with Yehuda and Yosef. The fact that Yehuda was the one that approached Yosef, if Yehuda is approaching Yosef, that means Yehuda, which is davening, is approaching Yosef, which is Geula. Shara Yosef, Shenyane Geula, Yosef, that his idea is Geula. Top of the next page of the Maimer, Hoylam Mailam Yehuda, Shenyane Tefillah was higher than Yehuda, which his idea was davening. V'lachein hutzrach Yehuda lagesh tzal Yosef. That's why Yehuda had to approach Yosef. And the Rebbe in other places says, just like Begashmis it was that way. Physically, Yosef was the viceroy. Yehuda was just a guest in the land. Yehuda was subservient and had to ask, please, my master Yosef, help us out over here, have Rahmanus or whatever. So Yehuda was the subservient role, and Yosef was the higher role, which means Geula is higher, and Tefillah, which is represented by Yehuda, was lower. But in the expression of Smichas Geula Tefillah, it sounds just the opposite. Second line, Aval Afal became still an all. Midiak Alosh and Smichas Geula Tefillah. From the exact language of making close Geula to davening, V'loi Smichas Tefillah Legula. We don't say making Tefillah close to Geula. K'may Yehuda li Yosef. Just like Yehuda approaching Yosef, it should have been Smichas Tefillah Legeula. It doesn't say that. The Zohar calls it Smichas Geula Letefillah. Mashma, from this it's indicated there's an advantage in quality in the idea of davening over the idea of Geula, and therefore it's a step-by-step process. Initially, there's Gal Yisrael, there's the level of Geula. And afterwards we come to davening, which is beyond it. Immediately after Gal Yisrael, begins davening by saying Adonai Sfosei Tiftach. And Chazal explain, hold it, one second, aren't we supposed to not interrupt? So he says the words Hashem Sfosei Tiftach Afi Yagitil Secha is not considered an interruption between Gula and Tefillah, but rather the Chazal say Sheketfillah Arichta Dami. It's likened to a long Tefillah. In other words, Hashem Sfosei Tiftach is also part of Tefillah. It's not considered an interruption between Shemoneh Esrei and Gal Yisrael. And he explains now why is it the davening begins with Hashem Sfosei Tiftach, and in a way an also explanation of why it's like a long davening. So he says Sha'adnai U'Melashon Haidah. The Adnai is also from the expression of thanks, because we are saying that we are praising and recognizing him as our master. Shehu Inyanat Tefillah, that's the idea of davening. So therefore the question is, if there has to be Smichas Geula L'Tefillah, meaning Geula is ancillary and a lower level than davening, so how does it fit in with our parsha V'ilu Kam Namar Veyigash Elav Yehuda, that Yehuda approached him, She Yehuda Nigash Li Yosef, that Yehuda approached Yosef, Hainu She Yosef Shinyane Geula, Ulamayla Yosef Yehuda Shinyane Tefillah K'nisker Leil, that Yosef, whose matter is Geula, he's higher than Yehuda, that his level is davening, like we mentioned earlier.